Hey guys, welcome to the Bionicle Inspiration Series, the show where we spotlight mocks from across the Bionicle community to inspire you to build some cool stuff yourself. Before we begin this episode, got a few very quick updates. If you are currently in Melbourne, Australia, I will also currently be in Melbourne, Australia at BEEEPPP 2019. As of the time this is posted, there will be the Saturday and the Sunday of the public days of BEEEPPP, so head on down to that. I will see you there. If you're coming, message me, because I may not even be by my table. I might be walking around. If you really want to say hi, gotta let me know. Another quick update. If you haven't, be sure to head on over to the front page, the home page of my YouTube channel, because there you can go to the community tab. And in the community tab, I now have the option for people to vote. So if you were like, yo Ben, I'd really like to see this episode, you can click on the polls that I will put up every Saturday after I post the most recent BIS episode, and you can actually vote for the next episode that you want to see. Every week I will post some sort of poll that allows you to kind of vote for a theme that you want or which episode I post next, that sort of thing. And on the subject of posting things, I've also had the idea of making episodes that are purely devoted to fan-submitted mocks. So once a month from now on, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to do an episode of BIS that is maybe like 6 mocks, and all of them will just be fan-submitted mocks in the episode. That'll just be the theme of that. But I'll do those kind of once a month. So that way, if you do submit something, you no longer have to wait ages to see it on the show. It'll be on a bit more quickly, which I think will be really good. Again, if you want to submit your mocks to the show, you of course can. The only way to do so is through the link that you, or the email rather, that you're currently seeing on your screen. Send me an email with some pictures and I will put it on the show in the near but distant future, which is even nearer now because we'll be doing the fan-submitted episodes, which is awesome. And on top of that, if you do send me an email, I've now set it up so that it will auto-reply so that you'll know that I have accepted it. Please do not resend your submissions. I most likely have them. If I go the way that I'm going in terms of just putting submissions in episodes as well as doing these fan-submitted theme episodes, I should hopefully be able to work through all the submissions that I've got. I've got a lot of them, but I should be able to work through all of them. And so then later on, if I've gone through all of them and I'm like, huzzah, I finished them all, and you're like, but Ben, where was mine? Then you can resubmit it. But for now, I most likely have it, don't worry. Anyway, that's enough of those updates. It's time to start the episode on robots. You might be like, but Ben, Bionicles are robots. And I'll be like, yes, they kind of are. But these are more sort of a robot kind of mecha aesthetic of some kind. I don't know. I don't actually know how to quite word it, but robots instead of Bionicles. I guess this is more Bionicle without the Bionicle, for lack of a better term. It's nothing within the Bionicle universe. It's using Bionicle pieces to make more sort of robotic-looking robots. So, let's go. Let's start with a mock by Reese EH, or Reese and his mock is called Unit 43. Or 43. But I reckon, like, his mum calls him that. Like, everyone's like, hey, 43, but his mum, like, when he's super angry at him, is like, Unit 43! So, we're gonna just call him 43, because we're one of his friends, I'm sure. So, awesome little robot design from Mr. Reese. But this mock is not this mock's pretty good. Really like the chainsaw design that you've got going on here, using all of those 1x1 system clip pieces there. Really effective chainsaw design, works really well. And actually, a lot of this mock uses a lot of system pieces to create some very nice greebled effects. The term greebled basically is a word used to kind of describe like this sort of very sort of space detail effects, stuff like you would see on a Star Destroyer or like the Death Star in Star Wars. Or it's very kind of like a sci-fi thing. You'll have seen it before, I'm sure, in non-Lego things. But that's what the term greeble means. I'm sure you've heard me say it before. I'm sure you've heard other people say it before. But the term greeble is also used slightly differently in the Bionicle community. Sometimes people will just use the term greeble just to describe like system details on a mock, which isn't necessarily wrong. I don't think it really matters. I think it just kind of has multiple uses, that word in the community, which is cool. But this is the more sort of typical greeble, which is that sort of mechanical detailed effect, which looks awesome on here. It gives him this very unique look, which again, you just really couldn't achieve that with using just mainly Bionicle pieces. It's awesome to see. And you get some really awesome looking designs, like for example, the torso here is kind of just this one beam with these sort of other 2 supporting beams on the side of it. And that blends in so well with the other greebles shown throughout the whole of this mock. And so it kind of makes that design, which is super simplistic and super robotic-like and super cool looking. It really kind of makes everything in the mock flow together and sort of allows you to kind of get away with using that design there. Because depending on the size of your mock or depending on what mock you use, if you did do such a sort of slim waist design like that, it might look a little bit weird. But given the aesthetics of this mock and the overall design of it, you're able to kind of justify that, which is really cool. So I think that's really interesting to see how when you kind of mirror textures or you sort of consistently have a texture throughout a mock, you're able to kind of do some interesting things with that. And overall, the mock just sort of flows nicely together and kind of has this overall solid composition. It's cool. I really like it. I also really like the kind of leg design on this. It's sort of a digigrade leg design kind of thing, but it's just kind of this funky, again, it's a very kind of robotic mecha look to it. It's a very nice leg design. I like it a lot. Something else I like a lot is the inclusion of this wooden beam here. You know, obviously this unit 4-3, I kind of imagine that he is... Oh, well, actually, there's a little bit of information in the description here. He says that his task is harvest sectors 14 through 16. So I imagine he's some kind of, you know, labor droid or labor robot thing that kind of his job is to cut down trees and, you know, do that sort of stuff. And that's actually pretty cool. And it's funny, like just adding in that sort of log thing there using some of those system pieces, it actually adds a lot more personality and a lot more story to this mock. And so I think that's something to consider when you're doing your photo shoot with your mocks. Maybe consider just putting some props on them or something, even if it's, you know, not a finalized thing. It's just kind of, you know, I've got this this sword lying around, I may as well put that on him, or I've got this little teddy bear from a collectible minifigure or something, I'll give it to them, give it to my mock. It might just sort of add a bit more to the story. It might kind of just sort of say a bit more and kind of make it a bit more interesting to look at, which I think is pretty cool. You know, like if it didn't have the log, it would still be a fantastic mock, but I think adding that in sort of helps start to create a story. It's pretty cool. So I like that a lot. It's a nice inclusion there and something to think about if you're taking photos yourself. Do you want to give some props to your mock to see what that can do for him? That's cool. So awesome mock by Reese there. Let's move on to the next one, which is by Vince Tololson and it's called The Machine. So there's a really freaking awesome part use on this mock. I absolutely love it, and this is definitely why I put this on the episode, because it's very, very clever. You take a look at the head design here, the sort of little orange eyes and stuff. Well, that piece is a Galador piece. It's Jen's torso. And so obviously that's been flipped upside down, and then he's managed to use those two little sort of orange bits on the torso there as the eyes. And then kind of combining them there with those goggles creates this really, really unique head design. It's awesome to see. It's really, really clever, and you're able to use a sort of more obscure part. And also I'm sure some of the connection points on that torso, because that Jen's torso that makes the head on this mock probably goes quite far down into the sort of system-built torso around the head there, all those dark red pieces. I imagine, because there are a few connection points on the Jen's torso, that's kind of helping make the overall construction. So I imagine he basically started with that piece and kind of built around it. And so that's something interesting, you know, maybe you want to sort of play around with how to do some nice part usages. So maybe that's the way to do it. Actually get a part, kind of stare at it for a while, and eventually if you see something, kind of build around that, using that nice part use as sort of the basis for the whole mock, you know. I think that's kind of an easier way to implement a nice part use, because, you know, maybe you're building something and then you're like, okay, I want to put a nice part use on this. You know, that can be easier said than done. Doing a kind of clever or unique or creative part use can be a little more challenging. That's why it's always so impressive when you see them. But sort of actually beginning with that might actually be an easier way to implement that. That's something to consider when you're building. Something else I like about this is this sort of mono wheel design. It's very unique, and it's even cooler how that's actually working on this mock here, because it doesn't support itself straight up, but we see that the way that the arm is attached, he's holding his little toolbox here. So actually the way that he's supporting himself is actually on that toolbox. So a little bit of trickery there, which is clever. But I like that. You know, maybe you want to do a specific design for a mock, but in order to do that, it actually won't really be able to support itself. Well, you can do a few tricks and things here. And again, like we saw with that log on the last mock, adding that toolbox in here is a great way to add a bit more personality and a bit more fun. And I want to say that spanner that he's holding is a Duplo spanner, because it's a bit bigger, it's a bit larger, but it looks like it might be a Duplo thing, which is clever. Always cool to see some Duplo parts being used. Who'd have thought? Also love the shaping that's being created with all these system pieces here, all these arches and curved slopes and things, using them all throughout the torso here. Very, very beautiful, smooth look to it. Very, very nice. And so far with this mock, as well as the last mock, we've actually seen a lot of system being used. And I say it all the time that, you know, have a think about the system pieces that you've got. See if you can implement them into a mock, because like we see on this, there's still a few sort of, you know, Bionicle and Galador and CCBS pieces used on here. Actually, I can't see any CCBS pieces, but that's besides the point. There's still a decent enough amount to kind of sort of classify it as a Bionicle. And even still, with the way that Construction is going as a line so far, it's a bit easier to use system pieces these days, because that's where a lot of our new pieces come in. And, you know, you get sets like Voltron or the Hulkbuster and stuff like that, and they're really, really cool mechs. And I know a lot of Bionicle people who look at those sets and they're like, I really want to buy this. This is kind of, it was closer to a Bionicle. It's not quite a Bionicle, but it's close enough. So, maybe building a few more sort of system mechs or just having a bit more system in your Bionicle is a fun direction to go, something to explore. You get to kind of play with new pieces. You get to create really interesting effects like we see here. So consider it. Give it a go. Whether you do like this and you have it sort of way more system than Bionicle, or you do like the last mock and it's a little more Bionicle than it is system, but it's still got a decent amount of system in there. It's up to you. So really awesome little robot design there. Let's take a look at another one by Marius Herman, and this is Gecko, which is from Metal Gear Solid 4, if you know what that is. That's pretty awesome. I'm sure you're fangirling out because I think this is pretty awesome. So sort of the kind of sub-theme of this episode about robots is also kind of a bit of, I guess, a bit of system integration. We've done a few system episodes before on the show, but I guess this is sort of an unexpected sub-theme for this episode. So we take a look at this and we see some Bionicle pieces here, of course, using these Rakshi back pieces here to kind of form this leg. And in the past, I've seen other Bionicle mocks that use these Rakshi back pieces. And man, they're a really cool part. They have a really interesting curved shape to them. And they work really well for legs because legs kind of have that same curved shape to them. And we see that here used on this mock and it's fantastic. It looks amazing. So using those sorts of pieces there, I think that's a good part to consider if you're making a leg design. And also I think something that's so cool here on this mock is how perfectly all of these other curved slopes and different things here flow so nicely into that Rakshi part. When I've talked to system builders who very rarely touch Bionicle, a lot of them are just like, well, I don't know how to even integrate Bionicle into my system because straight up, how do you do that? Well, we see on this mock here, it's maybe not as difficult as you might think. You can kind of almost completely disregard that those are Bionicle pieces. They flow so nicely into each other. I think it's cool. So kind of pay attention to some of the textures on your Bionicle pieces and the textures on your system pieces and find the ones that match. And that's more or less what's been done on this mock here. And then it's sort of simply about sort of crafting them in a manner that they kind of just flow nicely into each other like the legs are doing here. And it's cool. And we even see some rubber bands being used here to kind of hold things together. Nothing wrong with doing that with a few rubber bands, whether they're official ones or just some ones you bought at like, a local craft store or something. There's nothing wrong with that. Also too, this overall mock has this beautiful sort of sci-fi kind of mecha drone effect to it. It's really, really awesome to see. And it's a design that, you don't see too much in mocks, but it's a really, really beautiful look. And so I like that a lot. Maybe that's something you can consider doing with your own designs. Because, hey, this thing doesn't really have any arms. I mean, it's kind of got those little guns on the side, which I guess could be arms, but not really. But it's cool, isn't it? It's a really unique design. And so maybe you're building a mock and you're struggling with the arms. Does it even need arms? Does it even need a head? It could be kind of more drone-like like this. Who knows? I think it's pretty cool. So there's that one awesome robot design. Let's take a look at another, which will be the final mock in this episode. And this one is by Jockson and is called Cyber Vaccine Vivian. And she's the digital disease fighter, as the little description here says. Really like that. So one thing I love so much about this is the dress design on this. Really, really unique kind of female robot design, and that dress does so much for this mock, using some of these. Well, these came in an Exoforce set, but I also think those parts came in a hockey, sort of old Technic hockey sets. And they've been used again there, sort of on the top, the torso there. And it's just cool to see those pieces being repeated on the mock, but it's also cool to see just how nice those make this sort of flaring dress design. It's very, very cool to see. Also, something else that's really cool and very unexpected, well, at least for me, I didn't expect it to be this posable. Take a look at how posable those legs are. And so we take a look at the back. We see that Jockson's had a little bit of a back shot here, so we can see how he's done it. He's used some of the boat studs and other sort of 2x2 round system plates there, kind of using those to kind of sandwich onto some Technic pieces. And then you can actually get a fair bit of posability out of those. This is a really interesting and really, really cool design. It also creates a very smooth effect as well. And it's a way to kind of make that kind of curved leg design without it needing any kind of ball joints, which, sometimes some people are like, I want to build stuff, but I don't have ball joints. You don't need ball joints. You just need your boat studs. So that's pretty cool. I like that a lot. And it's so cool just seeing this shot of how posable that leg is. It actually adds a lot more personality to the mock, having that much posability. It's really, really cool. Also really like the weapon design on this. And it actually kind of lends itself to the color scheme very nicely as well, using this sort of funky syringe piece here. Because she is, what was it? Her name is the Cyber Vaccine Vivian. So, she's obviously a bit more of a medical droid of some kind. And I like that a lot. I think that's really, really clever to kind of make the weapon sort of serve her function in some manner. I think that's super, super cool and really clever. And something to consider as well is, when you're making your mock, do they have a sort of funky concept? Well, can that concept actually inform a weapon or an accessory like this sort of funky like pill or something here that she's holding? I think that's really cool. You know, come up with a concept and see what else that can inform for the mock. I like it a lot. And also too, like I said, really, really solid, awesome color scheme. That blue up against the black and white, and then the really, really strong pop of the different limes and greens and the kind of trans greens in there. It does a lot. It's really, really cool. I love it. So a lot to love about this mock from Jockson, and a lot to love about all of the robots that we saw in today's episode. Hope you enjoyed. If you want to check out some other stuff that these guys have built, be sure to check the links in the description, because you can check out their stuff there. And also while you're there, you can check out the links to my own social media and my own stuff, as well as possibly even checking out my Patreon page. If you can give me a little bit of support on that, I would very much appreciate it. Otherwise, that's it for this BIS episode on robots. I'll see you in the next one, and if you're down in Melbourne, I'll see you at Brickvention. See you guys. Happy building. Bye for now.